So welcome. Today is Friday. It is Whiskey Friday. And just so everybody knows, I think this is our sixth time that we've done this. So it's still a work in progress. And what it is this was an idea that came up a number of years ago where I wanted to just have more of a casual conversation about business. We talk about a lot of high level stuff together. Curtis and I are on different advisory boards together. And so we started saying, well, let's share that same kind of feeling of, when you're at the pub and you're hanging out with your buddy, talking about business over a whiskey. Let's try and recreate that. And so we found this platform, Blab, and we've just been doing this for a little while. So today we're talking about creating predictable revenue and actually creating your own luck. And so this is something that's come up with a lot of my clients lately is, the systems and that kind of stuff. And so I'm joined right now by Curtis Brown, who owns Design House Salon in Victoria. We both live in Victoria. And Graham Plum, who we've never met before, has just joined us, and now he has a whiskey. So cheers, brother.
Cheers.
What's going on? What are you drinking? Gold Label. All right. So before we kick it off, Graham, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what's going on. What we're talking about.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? I'm also from Victoria.
Cool.
Yeah. And I actually got referred to Joe through Nicole Collier.
Oh, why not? Cool.
Yeah. And we're a bit of serial entrepreneurs. We got a couple of businesses. We started a daycare in September. We own a financial planning company that we're right in the middle of totally redoing, which we're super jacked about. I've been doing that for 7 years. And then family business also has a medium to large size renovation company. So we dabble big time and digging it.
I love it, man. And then, what's so cool about I actually remember, I would go back years and years ago when I was single. I was on Plenty of Fish, and it was so funny how so many people you would meet online that are in your backyard, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've never connected, but you're here, and I'm like, oh, cool, we've got this guy on Blab. You're probably just next door. We'd never know, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny. A while back, because I have a lot of stuff online, and I get a lot of people that come to me through certain videos that I've done through my website. And one client, they added me on LinkedIn. They say, "Hey, we really love your video on spin selling." And this is what this ties into what we're talking about creating your own luck. I have these videos out there. Say we really like the stuff on spin selling. They added me on LinkedIn, and they said, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if we could have you, come and train our team?" And then the next message was like, "Hey, you're in Victoria." And I was like, "Wait, where are you guys?" And they were in Victoria, and they're actually 5 minutes away. So they became a new client, and we've been working together for 8 months, and they're just right in our backyard. But they found me through this online world. So this stuff is just so cool to be able to be global and at the same time local. So I think it's cool. I really think that's part of what we're talking about today is creating your own luck. You never know, right? You never know who's out there, and so very cool. So Graham, we will probably get together face to face and talk some business. So just want to give a shout out. We've got is it James over at Beehive Organic? He said he's operating behind the scenes here. And then we've got Alex, who's asking what kind of whiskey. So James is an awesome guy. He's in New Jersey, right, Curtis?
Yeah, he's New Jersey, just outside of New York, place called Hillsdale. Wonderful.
So yeah, he's a really sharp guy, and he's you guys have talked some business ideas, and so he's right on board with all this stuff too. So I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to talk. I've got a bit of a sort of a list of things. We're trying to figure out how to use this Blab in a really sort of constructive way. We don't want to go off the rails too much because sometimes, especially with the whiskey, that's why we keep it to an hour. Because after an hour, it can get a little bit hairy. So we're recording right now, and after an hour, we stop the recording. We can talk whatever we want. Yeah. But the first thing I want to mention, one of the concepts I've been bringing up with my own team, my business, as well as with clients. There's a book. I grabbed it here. Have you guys seen this, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits?
No, first time for me seeing it.
Dude, this is such a sick book. And one of the things I love about it, and I hope I'm not misquoting them, but the whole idea of what it means to scale your business, what it means to actually to take your business to the next level. And they talked about sort of these different phases. And one of my new clients, she's selling into a very specific market. And rather than thinking about segmenting or demographics, I said, think about the phases that your customers are going through and how you can impact them through the phase. Because what they looked at is most of the time when we first start out, we have this sort of scarcity mentality. Would you guys agree? You're like, I need a lot of customers, and we're freaked out because we need to get those customers. And so what we end up doing was the constraint is sort of external. We say, we got to get all these customers. We're doing all of this work to just validate our idea. But the problem is that what we should be focusing on is building the systems, building the processes, building the tools. But because we're operating from this sort of fear and scarcity mentality, we're doing all this stuff, and then we don't build the foundation. We build. We'd say, like Jim Rohn would say, build your business on a sand, right, rather than on rock. And so what ends up happening is, as we start to scale and we grow, and now we get all these customers, and then we go, oh man, now we've got all this stuff happening. So we hire operations people, we hire accountants, we hire lawyers, we hire all these these logical thinkers. And what ends up happening is they start to go, okay, let's build the systems, let's build the tools. And it kind of paralyzes the business a little bit. And I always say, when you start making decisions based on accounting and based on fear, that's the first step. And we see businesses start to crumble. They start to fade. They start to decline because they're focused on the wrong things. They're trying to shrink they're trying to increase those margins and shrink expenses. But that is the exact time that you need to now accelerate and go get more customers. So we're always operating in this sort of this backwards thinking. Is we need customers, but then we should be thinking about building the business. And when we should be thinking about customers, we're thinking about building the business. And that's the challenge. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today is, like, as you start to build your business, really thinking about systems and tools. Recently, I started landing a bunch of bigger clients. And the way that works is I have a team now that I've been working with that has helped me create templates and systems so we can take on more clients. So all you have to do is just get enough clients so you don't end up homeless. And build systems and build tools. So when you start to scale, now you can go get more customers. Would you guys agree that's kind of what's going on? Yeah.
Yeah. And if I can, what I'm hearing from you is that in that beginning stage is when we're really in that creative process, we're starting with an intention.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what's the intention of my business? What's that beginning? What's my flag stick that I can stick in the ground and say, this is my intention? And then everything I'm going to build from there, I can keep coming back to it and say, this was the intention of the business. Let me move forward from there. Let me move forward from there and go in different. And then that, when you were talking about we get the accountants and the lawyers, it's like the creative process stops.
Yeah.
And whenever all the positions are filled, that's, a scary time. If we're not looking for people, that's bad news because we're not adding, right? And so, and then instead of expanding for more clients, we're just focused on servicing the clients we have.
Yeah.
And that's super important, but we need to keep going from that. That's really what I heard from what you were saying there.
Totally, man. And one of the things I always say is, like, you never start a business to save money. No, I don't know anybody that starts a business unless your business is saving money, but you never start a business to say, how do I save money? And we start a business, to get customers, make them ridiculously happy and just keep getting more of those customers. And at some point, when we overcomplicate it with positions and roles in the technical, we forget about what we're supposed to be doing. And it's that feedback loop of, hey, where are the customers? And are we getting more? Are we making them happy? And how do we expand and do more like account planning, right? So,
yeah, and I wanted to just touch on something you talked about a little bit that's really important from my perspective, and that's the foundation aspect. I love the analogy of, building a tower on sand, and, the higher you build the tower, the less stable it becomes depending on the foundation. So a lot of people are trying to build up and scale up with systems, building systems on systems and systems, and making it a very, very unstable situation. It is a lot about building your systems wide, and part of that building them wide is, like you said, getting those strategic partners, like you said, Graham, those strategic partners in place to be able to make it so that, it's all not just leveraged on you alone on that, pinpoint of a top basis, because then you got to spin around to keep momentum, and you're constantly spinning and spinning and spinning. So you need that foundation of those bricks of strategic partners, like a really great accountant, like a profit analysis expert and consultant, a business coach, a financial advisor, all these things and systems in place to be able to continually be able to promote and support your systems.
Yeah, totally. And what Graham was saying too, you're bang on, is that if you've got that intention set from the beginning, that every new thing that you bring on, solves the problem, but doesn't lose sight of that intention, that long-term vision, right? So I do a lot of work. We do like 90-day sprints. Yeah. And the goal is to say, let's sprint for 90 days. Let's really make something happen, but retain what our 10-year vision looks like. And we don't want to stray away from that. And we do a lot of work with like reducing variation. So you can create that predictability in everything you're doing. And so when you take on new projects, it's not like swinging for the fences and I hope I get this one big deal. It's like, I know that if I get that deal, great. If not, great. Everything is great, right? That your business is manageable. But if you're relying on that like one big hit or that big shift or this big marketing plan, or somebody tells you got to do this big social media push, you're just running on tactics, right? So thinking strategically and thinking about systems. And I was saying to Curtis earlier is that, you want to build a process centric business rather than a people centric business. And because I work with people in sales teams, and I always say, I see a lot of businesses that are sort of held hostage by the best that their salespeople choose to do. Not what they can do, but what they choose to do. And so if we don't have systems and processes, then the salespeople just say, well, this is what we're going to do. And they just are like, they're kind of like bullying the organization, because I know what it's like to do that. But that's what happens to your organization. If you don't have the systems and processes, you don't know where you can push and pull, right? Yeah,
especially if you're in commission sales, because there's no salary. So it's paying you when you don't work. So you don't have to feel guilty about that. You're just cranking, so, it's like, you only pay me when I deliver. I don't take money from the company. I give it. And so that's not, that's a relationship that needs to be worked as well.
Yeah, it's very dysfunctional. But I do a lot of projects that I'm commissioned on, and it's fun. But it's being able to set accountabilities and self-manage and understand the system and set expectations, right? And if that stuff's not happening, and you're doing like hope marketing or hope selling, your business it struggles, right? And you're just hoping that people come on board. I will say what's up to Davon? Is it Davon just joined us as well? I'm going to look, original one to do the 24-hour blab. I love it. What's up, Davon? Join us if you feel like. We're talking about repeatable revenue, predictable revenue. Curtis, in your business, man, you run a salon, you and your wonderful wife. What are some of the things that you guys have done, right from the get-go? Because you have a really cool, I don't know if you've been there, Graham, they have this like salon that's just badass, man. It's so nice. It's sustainable. They've got all this cool stuff. Curtis, I saw some pictures of him a while back without the beard, didn't recognize him. He's just like this cool, they got such a cool vibe. Him and Chantel they're awesome. What are some of the things that you guys did to really, you came out of the gates with a really solid system. It wasn't like you dipped your toes in the water. You said, we're going for it. So what are some things you guys put in place to make that happen?
Well, we made a ton of mistakes, but the things that, the strengths that we did have, Chantel had a lot of experience in systems, in being in a hair salon, knowing what she liked, and she really educated herself on what she liked and what she didn't like, and how she always had that forward vision, that forward-looking aspect of knowing exactly how she was wanting to execute the plan and the system. So I guess for educating yourself, not only just by reading lots of books and being very conceptual, but in actual procedures of being in the trenches and doing the work, learning what you do and don't like about it. Also, I would say being really sure of who you are and what you like, and because a business is always going to be an extension of who you are and what your values are and what your ethics are. So when we were really clear, and it was a cooperative effort, when I was really clear with what she wanted and what she really wanted to see as her business, a salon that she wanted to work in and have stylists that have that similar ethics, and we're really sure about what I wanted, then we moved. We were able to execute the plan, directly and in line with all of our and very authentically. And so when it come across to the clients, they're coming in and they're saying, wow, like that is an authentic execution of a plan or system, and they're doing something a little different. And because we did something a little different, and we were present in our business, and we were connecting with the clients personally, and I'm getting a lot of stuff. Am I saying some good stuff here?
Devon is love. Oh my goodness.
I think your wife just logged on or something.
Well, I don't know. Is that? I've got an admirer out there. Oh, it's Devon. He's a serial love. That's awesome.
Oh man, he's feeding the ego.
Yeah, what you're saying is really good.
I love, just the way I'm listening to you, he loves it. I love this stuff. I know, like, just so you guys know, like the Blab shout outs or the hands up doesn't carry over to anything. It actually, I don't know if they're gonna add a feature to the thing. But you know what? I'm gonna let you finish that thought. Speaking of systems, I think Blab, just a shout out to Blab for a sec. They've done a really good job in creating this platform, and every time we log on, something is different. Today, before we started, actually 2 weeks ago when I did one, there's a little X that's above my above my screen that you can't see. Like I can kick any of you guys out, but on mine, for some reason, my camera didn't work the way it was set up. I was like, oh no. And so I clicked the X and it just shut the whole thing down. So everybody that had subscribed is like, just the thing has disappeared. I was like, oh man. So today when I started it, for some reason, my camera's open in another window and I couldn't get it. So it was just like flashing and I went, oh man. And then I clicked the wrong button again and it kicked me out and it said, your Blab has ended. But there was a button that says restart it. And I was like, oh my God, they're listening to the community. They're listening to systems. And that's what's so important. There's other companies that I've worked with or that, I'm a customer of, and they don't adjust to these systems. And so eventually the customers just give up, right? And so like Blab, I'm just, shout out, give hands up. I don't know if we can put Blab in a seat and we give them a bunch of shout outs, but they're doing this is a really, really cool platform. And so I just that's my shout out to them. Curtis, keep going, talking about your systems. I mean, you guys, she had a very clear vision, but you guys have adapted quite a bit as you've been going. Like you said, lots of mistakes. And that mindset of like, you know what, screw it, we can make mistakes. That's kind of where you guys are at. It's just being like, let's learn, let's evolve, let's be open to new ideas and not do what everybody else has done, right?
Yeah, we had to react. I guess react is probably not a good word, but we had to evolve. We had to evolve our strategy. We had an idea that we wanted to put forward, and we thought, this is new to the market. There is a market for this. We've done a lot of research. For everybody that knows, we created a holistic beauty concept. So our holistic beauty concept is not just beauty from the outside and hoping that it kind of trickles in and makes people feel good. We actually wanted to develop a service model that treated people from the inside out so that we were also assessing their beauty from the inside. So, and that can be a bunch of different types of decisions. But ultimately, when we execute the plan, we liked our concept. The clients liked our concept. But one of our struggles was that a lot of our stylists that that we were attracting and getting into it, they didn't understand it because it was so new, and we're getting them, and so our education level had to really get bumped up because we had to say, well, I know we're a new salon and we have this new concept and we're attracting we're trying to attract these kind of people to our team. The members are like, well, I know how to do really good hair.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't really understand it fully because you're the one with the philosophy degree and you're the one that has all this writing that I read and it sounds good, but I don't know how to react to that. So it has been quite a process of being able to not only attract new stylists and not scare them off with having us doing something a little different, but also being able to have our current stylists that do get it to be really good ambassadors for our executed plan. So
and Curtis, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you mean like psychology kind of education for them? Like, this is how people work and this is what we can do? Or do you mean like this is the where our company's coming from and the intention, and we're not going to just do hair, we're going to do this as well? That kind of education, both?
Well, that's a good question because it has to be an ongoing education. It's something where, we have brought in people. We brought in Joe to come and talk about a little bit of the psychology of sales and selling from an authentic platform, in a consultative selling process rather than, what he likes to call sales breath, which I love and I'll continue to bring up. It's kind of a salesy weirdo.
Mine's sales and whiskey breath. So just
yeah.
But you're saying the sales weirdo. Yeah.
And you can go back in some of the blobs and some of Joe's content, and you can hear what he has to say about that because excellent training. I'll recommend it. But also, we have staff. Well, we try to have staff meetings every month. We'd like to have them every week. That'd be amazing, but that's a lot to get. But we do once a month, and we also do PDMs in those processes or professional development meetings with each stylist. In our meetings, I try to have a time when I can, at least speak for maybe 5 minutes about some aspect of our ethics and something about what we're doing. And then also, I try to get one of the staff to research one of our principles or our ethics and be able to explain it to the rest of the staff. So they kind of hear it from another person. We also, I do a few little, I'd say strategic tactics in that if we are at an event or if we have a new thing going on, I'll get one of the staff members to explain to the presenter why we're asking them to be here and what is a principle or pillar of our ethics or our systems to be able to encourage why we're here today. And so, little things like that. I know that we've got a lot more other things that we do, but it is philosophy, psychology. It's recommending books. It's constantly, living authentically with what our principles are, because we are in the business and we work every day doing that, and with nonprofit work and with Chantel, the way she conducts with her clients. So we're doing, we're doing as we say, and we're doing it as we do. We're not being hypocritical about that. So
for sure. Graham, what about in your businesses, man? What kind of systems, you've been doing your stuff for a while. What systems, what things are really sort of non-negotiable for you as you start to build things where you say, it doesn't matter how the market changes, how things adapt, how the world sort of fluctuates. What are the things that you guys do that you say, if we don't do these things, we're screwed, right? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. For us, it's a pretty neat time for us that you asked that. We've been doing what we do. My wife and I are in business together. We've been doing what we do for 7 years. And we're actually right now, so we were with, it's called a housed agency. So that means somebody else brands you, somebody else says what you can put on the internet, and that sort of thing. We're moving from that into an independent agency. So we're going to have our own brand, our own name. And we resigned. And we haven't relaunched yet. We're unemployed.
Yeah, perfect. The best guy.
So anyway, we're kind of in this limbo, and we've been really fortunate. We've been pretty much on a 2-week brainstorm, and I'm talking like super high levels of, where you're super happy with, that the juice has just been pumping for 2 weeks. But some of the systems that we're working on right now is, I think, what you're talking about. So we're talking like monthly coaching calls. Yeah. We're talking access every month to us where every major money purchase, so cars, houses, insurances, animals, we're going to have a system where you can call us and say, hey, listen, I'm going to buy a car, and this is what we're looking for, and this is the paperwork I got so far. What do you think about that? And so we're going to be able to be kind of that check stop where someone's like, yeah, this is how much I'm paying for it. This is the lease agreement. Those are the terms. Should I be leasing, buying new, buying old?
What is the business that you guys are doing?
So we're financial advisors.
Okay. I was not sure there yet.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And it's funny because in our old role, we were pretty much just financial advisors. Yeah. But in our new business, we're going to be much more than that. Sure. We're going to take on a huge. Our demographic is 30-year-old people, and who make 50 to 150 a year. That's our demographic. So that's going to be a huge part of what we do. We obviously do updated financial plans and all that. That's pretty typical in our industry. But those are some of the systems. And then, but this monthly coaching call is a new system that we're going to provide. We're actually just going to launch it with some existing clients to kind of test it out right now, and then kind of use it as a subscription model in the future.
Love it. And you know what? Awesome. That's very, very cool. And one of the things that I'll throw on my notes, I got notes. I'm ready. I got notes. But one of the things that, just so you guys know, how awesome is my shirt, by the way? It's my favorite shirt. And I thought they will like to talk to team if you have time on your hands. Wonderful. Cool. One of the things that I'm a big fan of is testing. Right, just like split testing, absolutely everything you do. And what I actually last night we had our AGM for our Young Entrepreneur Society, and I spent some time with a friend of mine, Shigenori, who was Curtis knows him as well. He was my spiritual coach for a number of years, and we're big fans of spirituality in business. And for me, not like sitting around in like meditation and prayer and circles and doing ohms for my business, but really stepping away from all the stuff. And understanding about ego and vulnerability and all these kinds of things, and being okay to test stuff and being okay to say, I don't know. I always used to do that in my big boardroom meetings, my corporate stuff. They say, what do you think about this idea? I'm like, I don't know. Let's look at it. Let's analyze it. Let's test it. Right. And we always just say, that's okay. Build a culture of being able to test. And so I read this wonderful book, and I'm going to grab it. So I'm going to just keep referencing books. This one is wonderful. Leonard Mlodinov. It's called Subliminal. And what he talks about in this is that in our brain, there's two parts. There's the scientist part of our brain and the lawyer part of our brain. I may have talked about this before, but it really is important to what we're doing here. Is the scientist part of our brain is the one that starts to think about things really, really creatively and says, what's the thing, X, Y, Z, how does it work, what worked, what didn't, and we create theories and ideas, and then we prove those theories and ideas right. And then we say, okay, what's the truth behind it? But then the lawyer part of our brain is the one that starts with a conclusion and does everything it can to prove that conclusion right and disprove everything else. But the problem is that because of our ego and our vulnerability and our sensitivity, our brains are really good scientists, but way, way better lawyers, because we're always trying to hold on to that ego. We don't want to be wrong. And so even if we feel like we could be wrong, we're like, no. This is just how we've done it before, right? And you guys know the definition of insanity, right? Yeah. Right? Do the same thing over and over, expecting the different result. I think the newest one when I'm teaching people is doing the same thing over and over and expecting the same result. Because of how things are changing so freaking fast all the time, is we have to adopt a change mindset. We have to adopt a testing mindset. So what I think works today may not work tomorrow. And when I work with clients, we build really, really powerful feedback loops. Like I have some clients we're just launching into these 90-day sprints that we're doing. And they're just saying, hey, what if it changes in a month? I'm like, well, that's how the business is built. Because if it does change in a month, we have to be able to adapt. I can't say this program is pre-prescribed, and if you don't follow me to the T, then you can't be my client. Like, you have to be able to adapt, but adopting a testing mindset. And so that's kind of one of the big things for me is like, I just don't know until I test it and we prove it. And even when we do prove it, next month it could change. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm looking at in my business, is how to be able to do more and more of that kind of stuff. And that's what I'm trying to bubble up in and put it into my team as well. So as Curtis is talking about strategic planning with your teams, I've got a session with my team in a couple weeks. And that's the mindset we want to adopt as a corporate culture, as a value statement, to say, hey, we don't know until we test it. And even when we test it, we're probably still not true. Let's just keep adopting, right?
Yeah, and something we say a lot is that's right in line with that is everything works and nothing works.
I love it. Yeah,
we say that a lot because and we pull that back to our intention. We say, well, what's the intention we're doing this with? And we might have two people on one team, and one person's rocking it, and one person they're using. We use the easy version of if it's a sales script, one guy's saying the sales script and working, one guy's saying the sales script and it's not
100%, yeah.
Right. So everything works and nothing works, which is kind of the point you're getting there. It's great.
That's a great. I love that line. I'm stealing it.
Yeah.
I'll give you attribution. I'll put a slide attribution. No problem. Going back to what Curtis was talking about, when we did the sessions with the team, is really sort of because I'm a sales guy, right? Like I resisted being a sales guy for years because this is what I love, right? Thanks. Davon's got to leave. He's got to check out. Davon, good to see you, man. And thanks for all the props. This looks like we've done a lot of really cool stuff.
1,500 clicks. That's incredible.
But what we look at is, I'm gonna grab another book. Boom! I got this book. I got lots of books. This one, Power of Habit. You guys seen this? Charles Duhigg. Mm-hmm. Man, this is a sick book.
I feel like all my books are old books. You have all these new books.
I got all these new ones. I'll send it to you, whatever you want. But the Power of Habit, one of the things I love is, for me, I studied neuroscience and psychology and behavior and this cognition side of things. And with habits, they're starting to study brains more and more and more. And what it is based on, you have a cue or a trigger, then a routine and a reward. And so all the stuff we're doing is like, we can keep doing all of this stuff and having fun and enjoying and being authentic. But when we start to understand how building the right habits and building the right systems actually decreases our mental energy, we start to see how we can take on more stuff and actually make everything more effortless. All we have to do is identify, when this happens, I do this. And most of the time, especially in sales and in most of the businesses out there, we're very reactive. Something happens, we go, shit, I got to do this. No, and we're always surprised that somebody did the same thing that every other customer has done. And that blows my mind, especially in sales. They go, oh man, every time I talk to customers, they have a price objection. I'm like, okay, well, what do you say? They're like, well, sometimes it's like this and like, or kind of. And I was like, oh, that's all we got to fix is the likes, and kind ofs. And that's what we talk about for systems and repeatable revenue. If you ever find yourself not sure about something, or answering it with a or a like, or well, sort of, then you got to build a system. That's how you really make it happen. And it's like what Curtis and I talked about with you could talk about with your team, getting them out of this like winging it kind of mentality and saying, what's the stuff that happens every time, and what do we do when this happens, so that we feel a lot more comfortable moving people forward through decisions. Maybe you want to talk about that, Curtis, my man.
Yeah, well, that's a really big topic. Where do I start with that? I guess maybe I'll start with identifying a problem, and then we can discuss it. One thing, especially when we're talking about systems and we're talking about this, I know we're kind of coming from two different aspects. One is, are we building systems based on what our clients want to see, or are we building systems on what our employees are able to execute? Mm-hmm. Maybe we should just be building them without, considering any of that. But I think the answer is all three, that we probably should be building systems to incorporate all three of those aspects of, as an entrepreneur, we have that forward vision. We know what we are going to do. We've done the research. We know what we're capable of executing as far as a system. We built it wide to withstand a good foundation. But then we're also considering, what our clients are wanting, of course, because otherwise, we're just going to be doing business, in the middle of nowhere, and no one even knows that we're there because we're just not useful. Or we can have a great system, we can have lots of clients, but none of our employees are able to execute the plan, and it fails that way too. So maybe if I can throw it back at you, Joe, just in a way to be able to explain, from your perspective, what you wanted to speak on today with regards to building systems, and more on the success of the business principles rather than on people, but also just like, taking into account, the clients and employee relationships with regards to those systems.
Yeah, man, there's, I get what you're saying here. And there's an activity I like to do is called fix, find, and prevent, because in our business, we're faced with challenges all the time. And so what we do is we say, okay, what's the stuff that happens? And it always blows my mind when I talk, especially on the sales side and just in any part of the business. People say, well, here's the challenges that come up, and here's the things that happen with our customers. And I say, okay, well, how often does that happen? And so yesterday we were talking to one group, and they said, well, this happens 20% of the time. I'm like, so then what do you do? They're like, oh, well, sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that. I'm like, well, there's your problem. And we actually map it out and say, based on that problem, 20% of it, based on the offer that you have, based on how many times this happens, and based on your likelihood to solve that problem, this ends up being like half of that you can't solve. So 10% of your business based on this, we found it's $1 million problem. I'm like, so you just let that problem keep going. I was like, how about this? If you, after tax, give me $800,000, I will do around the clock, and I'll just keep solving that problem for you. No problem. That's a great contract for me. I'll do it for $800,000 for the year. Or we solve that friggin' problem, man. And we go in and say, let's look at this. So what we do is we say, what are we currently doing? When that problem arises, when that challenge, when that question, when that customer says, hey, I don't like this, or something happens, we're like, I don't like the way that's happening, or, these things go on. We say, okay, how do we currently do it? When we fix it, we usually typically end up reacting, and it's usually based on emotions. We kind of, in the moment, come up with an idea. Right. And so that's really stressful as a business, to always rely on everybody to react emotionally, physically, spiritually in the moment. So let me say, okay, well, what's that problem? What's the cause of that? So we say, okay, well, let's find the cause. And typically that's where most businesses live, is saying, whose fault is it? What happened? Why did this happen? And now here's a document we're going to use. And when a customer says this, you say this. And so now we have these kind of canned responses. And it's almost like just a shitty way of dealing with customers. And that's where people start to say, well, that's just policy. That's just how we do it. Blah, blah, blah.
And a lot of work.
And it's a lot of work, because we're constantly, and when we talk about like the conscious and competent side, that's where we live in like conscious competence, where we just know all the stuff we know. And it's just a lot of mental activity. Remember everything we do. When we go into the prevention mode, we say, why is this happening? And is there anything we can do to just not make this happen? Is there something we can do in our marketing materials? Is there something we can do in our initial call with people? Is there something we can do so that people go, and we do what's called psychological priming for our clients, for our customers, so they know what to expect. Now, I'll give you an example of that is I was having, I do a lot of training, weekly coaching, and this kind of stuff. And sometimes what happens is after a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the client calls me and says, hey, my team's feeling overwhelmed. They've had too much stuff. It's a lot of information, blah, blah, blah. And so my reaction is like, well, your team's not working hard enough. And I start to get emotional and real, like I get pithy about it. And I put all the blame on them. And I started to realize, is this something that I could have prevented? Right? Or do I have a canned response because this happens a lot? And if it keeps happening a lot, whose fault is that? Probably me. And so the prevention method, now every client I take on that we do a weekly session with, the first thing I tell them, I have now an accountability document before we even sign up. And I say, just so you guys know, here's how I work. It's not the hour of the time that we spend together. It's the 6 days and 23 hours in between that you do the stuff. And if you don't do the stuff, I can't help you in every hour because it's going to get overwhelming. And so that everybody goes, oh, okay. And if we have that agreement ahead of time, we never have the problem a month in, 2 months in, 3 months in. They just go, okay, I know what I need to do. But if we don't set those expectations, we don't prevent that stuff from happening, our business starts to get really claustrophobic and overcrowded. Right. So that's kind of what I'm looking at is in your business, any challenges that arise, if it happens more than once, you have to step back and say, what's the business case to solve this thing? If it's worth it, solve it. If not, just deal with it. So that's my long answer to that question. And as Cody says, it started with the integral life practice. It's very accessible. You better join us. And I want you to elaborate on that because that's kind of, I don't know what you mean there.
I think she's recommending a book, so yeah, it'll be good to hear from her about. I've got it written down here. I'm going to read it, but
cool. Yeah, check that out. That's why I have Amazon Prime. Everybody tells me, "Hey, check out this book." I just buy them. Right? That's it. I'll check it out. I'll read it. So let's kick it over to my man Graham Plum. Tell us on that aspect about the systems, about the business, and about solving challenges. Are there any things that you do in terms of mitigating this risk and creating opportunities to grow your revenue, to start to predict what's going to happen in your business? That's what we're talking about here.
Sure. So I think something that an incredible concept that we've been working from is intention, architecture, environment.
Okay.
And so intention, architecture, environment, and intention as our flagpole. And then architecture, which is what we're talking about right now, is the systems. What am I building in my business? And that's going to create a certain environment. Mm-hmm. So, if we have a system where someone's continually having a value objection, they're coming in, it's too much money or something like that, then that's creating an environment, which is my service costs too much money. And so that environment is being rebroadcast through your clients that, oh yeah, it's, what they do might be awesome, but it's really expensive.
Yeah.
So that we got to come back then because the environment is going to come back and be self-fulfilling. So we need to change that architecture in our business. And that's really what we're talking about right now. So the architecture is, what value are we providing? Is there something similar in the marketplace? Can I look at something else and are they, is it cheaper there? One of the businesses, we have a family renovation company. So, are the renovations that we're providing, are they the same as everybody else out there? What are we providing? What are we charging? And that sort of thing. So with our renovation company, we're definitely not the cheapest. We're not the most expensive. We're kind of middle to high end. And so, what do we provide? And so some of the architecture is on the front end of every renovation that we do is we have a checklist. So we have a 2-page checklist, and it goes over a lot of things. Some of the things are, where's the electrical panel? Where's the plumbing? Where's the water shutoff? Do you have pets? What rooms must remain untouched and 100% clean? And those types of things. And so we go through this where the whole home is evaluated. So when we have plumbers, electricians, people coming into the house, we have a wall where there's a whole bunch of papers put up, plans, what the work is to be done, and then all of that information. So when an electrician comes on site, he looks at the information board and he can get a scope of the whole house from the front door. And so that's part of the architecture we put in to make sure that the house gets taken care of and the client, we got something to go off of. Another part of architecture was, before it was like, well, I'm not going to be working, too much in this area. So I'm not really going to protect the floors too much, maybe. And so what we did is we said, you know what, we're just going to add, $75 into every contract, and we're going to buy a roll of super dense cardboard, and we're going to roll that out. We're going to tape every edge down so that the floors are fully covered and taped, and we never have to think about it again. Mm-hmm. And so that creates an environment of safety for the customer so that they see us do that on day one and they go, oh, my house is taken care of now. I don't have to think about that anymore. Yeah. And so they feel a certain way about you.
Absolutely.
And what that's produced is if you go on to Houzz, Houzz, it's a big renovation and carpenter kind of website, is we're killing it in the reviews, and a major portion is cleanliness. Major portion, which for renovations, when someone tears apart your house, you're living in it, cleanliness is like #1 annoyance factor.
That's awesome. I'm going to give you a bunch of shots. That's a sick insight on your. Look at that. I'm giving you lots of there. That's a really powerful insight, because when we look at our business, often we think about all the stuff and the how to and the what to do. And the biggest thing we got to say is like not what to do or how to do it, because everybody wants to know that shit, but it's who do I have to be? Right. And what do my customers feel as a result of this stuff? And we don't think about that empathy often of our customers and what they're feeling. And so that's what you're talking about, like that word feel, like they feel like this is good, because it's a scary thing. Renovations, it's like, this is going to create chaos. This is going to create, this whole thing in my world that I don't want. And by creating like, reducing those emotions, they're going to say, wow, they know what it feels like to buy from you. Right. And they go, oh, that's the feeling I want. I want to have the thing. I want the stuff, but I don't want to feel this way. But if you can solve that, I'm in. Right.
Yeah. And then the reviews are crazy.
Yeah.
We got a review 2 weeks ago. This guy wrote on there, he came in, he said, I feel like I just went through an HGTV makeover. I was like, whoa, like dude just was so taken care of beginning to end. That was one thing we did. Another thing we implemented architecture wise is we have a daycare business. So, we started a daycare business. We're allowed 8 kids in our daycare. And, we said, okay, what do regular daycares do? They provide these services, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we said,
wait, how many businesses do you have, first of all?
A couple, 3 or 4 maybe.
I love it.
I guess, yeah. And then, and we said, okay, so we're going to provide those things for sure. And then we said, what kind of architecture, what could we put in where that would make our parents of the kids post something on Facebook? Like what would be unreal where they would actually tell it, like, they're going to work right after they drop off their kids. They're going to talk to somebody there.
Yeah.
What would make them talk to them about our daycare? And so we said, okay, what are they missing? What are they doing in the morning? Like, what's it like for a parent? So we get into their world. We say, okay, a parent gets up in the morning, right? I mean, I got 2 kids. So you get up in the morning. Usually your kids wake you up, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, crap, I got to get up. So then, you start getting up and you're like, you're a little behind the 8 ball. Maybe your kid's already been up, so he's already terrorizing your house. And so you're a little behind. So, you got to put the coffee on and make breakfast, make a lunch for your kid, all these things you got to do. And you're pretty much just like trying to get out the door with everyone's got all their stuff. And it's, and we say, okay, so these parents, their world of getting ready for work is like hustle, bustle, all these things to remember. Great. So they got to remember all this stuff. What if we could provide something they don't got to think about? Mm-hmm. What if we could provide that? What if when they drop their kids off, we got coffee made for them? They can pick up a to-go coffee at our daycare.
Totally.
Boom. So we said, how easy is that for us? We just brew an extra pot of coffee. We throw it in an urn. It's at the door. We got to-go cups. So now they can come, hit coffee at us, or bring their to-go mug, refill, off to work. 2 days later, Facebook, boom, girl posts, I got the best daycare ever. There it is. Totally we didn't have to tell her to. It was unbelievable. And it rocked our world. It fulfilled for us.
Yeah, man.
And really,
And I like that, you're doing something too. Something that Joe talks a lot about too, is that you're not chasing or discounting. You are just adding some value to that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And then next level. So we got to there and we did that a couple of times. And now the parents are like, I want to drop off. Right?
I love coffee.
and then we said,
I don't even have kids, Grandma. I want to drop Curtis off.
Drop something off, get a coffee. And then I'm thinking next level, we got a bakery down the road. I can affiliate market. I can say, hey, bakery, can you provide us with some kind of a snack?
Yeah.
I'll put your logo above the snack. I can have that for the parents when they come. They can get a bagel and a coffee. I can share the cost with that company, and they're going to get advertising in my bakery. They might post that on Facebook. That's added value again in the business community.
Yeah, and a bagged lunch.
And a bag, yeah.
Well, and like a free back massage. Like what? Like I'm coming to. I'm gonna go have some kids just so I can come and get all this cool stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
The question I Cody's asked the question. I'm still wanting her to join this call, but she won't do it. But the question is, oh, look at, she's in. All right, Cody, what's up, my chick? Here we go. So I'm just putting people on the spot. Here she comes. So the question that she's asked is, I'd love to hear more about the Spiritpreneur and the philosophy integrating. Hello, Cody. Everybody always checks their hair. First thing they do is, how am I doing on Blab, right? I can't hear any audio, so you got to check your audio there. But what and maybe Curtis, I'm gonna kick it to you in a second here. But the concept today, I want to stick in on the concept of predictable revenue and creating your own luck, and I'm going to bring it into spirituality as well. And I did a webinar last week, and one of the there's actually two concepts that I have. Is one, and Cody, I can't hear your audio, so you got to sort that out until you can come in here. I don't know, just keep making faces. Your hair looks great. But there's two areas. One is a lesson that I learned, a really quick one on public speaking. It used to be where I would go and I do a lot of keynotes and speaking and blah, 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 toot my own horn, that kind of shit. But when I go and speak, I used to be worried about, how I was presenting, what was I wearing? How was I, the checking our hair, all that kind of stuff. And then at some point, I don't know what the realization was, it was this whole conversation around ego and around, it has nothing to do with me. I could get up in pajamas and still rock out a speech. But the only difference is when we make that switch to being about everybody else except and not about me. And so when I speak and when I do training, I look for two things. I tell everybody: nods and notes. If they're nodding, so they can't help but nod if it affects them. And if they're taking notes, that means something I said is impactful for them. If they don't nod or take notes and they just stare blankly, just the same if you're networking or doing something, then what you're saying doesn't work. And Cody can't get her audio, so she's just going to
write.
So you can just give a thumbs up or type in the side if you want to stay on. You might want to actually, Cody, if you go up on the side, right in your URL, there's a little lock box or a little lock thing. If you right click on that, you can change your settings. So you may want to change where your microphone is on that. You see what I'm saying? There's a lock button. Anyways, you can figure it out or don't figure it out. But what we're talking about is from a spirituality standpoint, is that was sort of a metric that I started to test. So because everything we do is I am a metrics guy. I love spirituality. I love all the fun stuff and authenticity. But if we can't bring it back to a metric, Debt Shepherd. Oh, Debt Shedder. How do you say it? Debt Shepherd. That's hard to say. Camera icon in the web address bar. So there's a little
star.
Yeah, Cody, sort it out. Come on. So anyways, everything that I do is always based on metrics, and that's why we create predictable revenue. So now when I speak, at the end of it, I give myself a rating. And when I'm on sales calls, I have a call rubric that I use to measure sort of my effectiveness and look at the metrics that I can push and pull on. And I shared this before, but one of the metrics that I created this year was, what is my authenticity rating? What is my speed to authenticity when I'm talking to other people? When I'm doing my podcast, when I'm doing videos, and when I'm doing sales calls, or when I'm just talking to people in general, am I legitimately myself? Or does it take me a while to get into that sort of frame of now it's comfortable? So we wait for the conversation to be comfortable before we act normal. And so when I started putting that as a metric and I started tracking that, I went, oh man, I keep doing these things, right? So when we talk about predictable revenue, now I know that when we look at the 80, you guys have heard of the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. When we focus on the highest value activities, I've realized that it's all of the stuff I do right away that sets the tone for everything else. If you write a blog post, it's the subject line that makes them open it. It's the first line that makes them read second. If you're having a conversation, it's the energy that you put out, the authenticity that they go, hey, I like this person, instead of like looking past you to say, who else do I want to talk to? So it has nothing to do with what you say. And so all of the stuff that we worry about of what's the right thing to say and when should I say it, how should I dress and where should I put my feet and how do I mirror body language, that's all bullshit, because it's how you kick it off that matters, and the way that you're intentional, the way that you connect with somebody. And I like Det Shepherd. I can't even say it. Det Shepherd. Who am I? Why am I here? And why should you care? And I always, exactly. I always imagine somebody, with a jiffy marker on their forehead that says, "What's the point? Why does it matter to me?" Right? Just looking at somebody, because when they're looking at you, and they're especially in Canada, they're just being polite. And if you're not, and it's not that they're not interested, they're just not. You're not interesting, and be interesting and like kick ass right from the beginning, and that sets the tone for everything else. All the funnels and stuff. If people are like, "Hey, I like this guy. I don't know what it is, but they're authentic," people will buy from people they like, and that's it, right? And so from the question that she had was, a nice shot glass, Curtis. I like Det Shepherd. But the question was, how does spirituality come into play with this? And that's exactly what it is. So you have to know, like you said before, Graham, is how to set that intention, how to know the intention of your business. And Curtis, how to be able to make sure you have your value and your vision locked in so that when you kick off a conversation, people get it right away. That makes it easier for everything else. And so if you're going to do anything, put a metric around how fast you kick ass.
Well, yeah, and a good point that you put up, or that you expounded a bit, was talking a little bit about ego. And one thing I will say about that, because I know, especially in spiritual circles, and a lot of people out there talking like, "Oh, you got to put down your ego. Get rid of your ego. It's death of the ego. That's where you're gonna gain that spiritual understanding." But I think it has to go beyond that. I think it's not just about that. The soul and the ego, they have to learn to be a team. And I think that's really the point. Is more of an integration of the concepts of being able to look beyond just what you think you would like to act like, or what you'd like to portray as yourself, or what your image you think that you are, but rather just being really comfortable with just being who you are, and then allowing aspects of your business to just continue to develop. And I like what Graham's been saying too. I'm just bringing it back to what his business concept is that he's got a few businesses because they're just really authentically where his mind's at, where his passion's at, where he's really thinking about that client, because he's kind of putting himself in the shoes of that client. But also, I think maybe because of the financial background and, where you're taking your next business to, which is a really important aspect, is that, we need strategic partners in our lives, in our businesses, to act in the position of a shareholder. So, we think a lot about, what do I want to get out of this business? What do my clients want to get out of the business? How am I going to get my, what are my employees going to get out of the business? But also, you have to kind of think of what the shareholder's position is on these kind of ideas. And so, your decisions are also going to impact your bank account, for your investments of how, when you would like to retire. To have somebody to be able to sit back and say, okay, yeah, I know you would like a brand new car and it's lease time, in your business, and, this is only $200 more. But to have somebody that steps aside and says, okay, well, why is that $200 going to make you more money? Because if that $200 is going to make you more money for having a better car, and that might be the case. If I say, well, I have to go to my meetings, so I need a Mercedes in order for people to say that they think that he appreciates quality, he likes quality, and he knows good craftsmanship, and most of his clients are German. Well, maybe that's the case. So, that's a shareholder decision, and that you're going beyond that. And then to take it a little bit one step further is to be able to put yourself or your soul in the position of that shareholder in your life. So yes, the ego and the soul are combined in the spiritualpreneur aspect, but your soul is really the shareholder accountability position in that case. So when we do, go to a conference, and when you talk, Joe, I can, I see your authenticity oozing out in a way where people are like, what, he's getting shit done. He's a little bit, he comes across a little bit like, aggressive and maybe a little bit arrogant.
Out of his mind, yeah.
But he actually knows what he's talking about. And, when you're, there's a couple of leadership abilities or mistakes that I think of when we're getting going on this that can cause a really drastic effect. And one of those, or the couple that I've established, is what I call hypocritical abstentia, where you like, do as you say, where the model is like, do as I say, but not as I do, where you're not holding, you might hold your, you might be holding other people accountable, but you're not really doing anything that supports that decision and leadership. The other is the apathetic kind of productivity, where you'll follow the system, they'll do really well, but you let people just do as they like, and not hold them accountable. And then all of a sudden you get into a position where you're like an accessory to failure, or an accessory to apathetic productivity. And what happens is it creates this like bipolar organizational effect, is what I call, where like the leaders are they might hold themselves accountable, but they're and living up to their values or systems or objectives, but then they make it worse by creating this contempt and cynicism in the organization, because they're not holding others around them accountable for making those decisions, or they're absent from the business and they're not doing this and they're great. So this position can take that effect within the shareholder soul and ego perspective. So sorry, I kind of talked a little bit about a while on that one.
No. Keep going, man. That's awesome. I'm just gonna shout out to Creatives Link. He's just enjoying the show. Curtis, this is why I love you, man. Like you always bring the noise, you bring the thunder in the conversation. You have this really cool insight, and just so you guys know, when I look down, I'm taking notes. Like, so Curtis, you're getting nods and notes and smiles. This is a trifecta, baby. Oh yeah, we got the notes, baby. We got books and notes, and what's up? So a couple of things. I'm gonna kick it back to Graham in a second, and I'm gonna rant for like 2 minutes here. Two things that you really absolutely kicked ass on here was, one is you were talking about being an accessory to failure. And man, I love that. I love that just the turn of phrase that you use there, because one of the things we look at, especially with teams, is to say let's build best practice, right? Let's figure out what the best people in our industry and the best people in our business are doing, and let's find out, based on this testing, this scientist mentality, how do we actually pull these levers, push the buttons that actually make a really kick-ass impact on our business. And once we've identified those best practice, let's make that permeate through our organization, whether you have 2 reps or 2 people on your team or hundreds and hundreds. And I work with teams that have hundreds of reps. The kicker is that if you have a rep that's outperforming somebody else and they're going against best practice, let them. Right? Try and figure out what they're doing differently and see if you can replicate that. If you can't, leave them alone. But at the point when they start to, fail or miss something or not follow a process or become like not compliant or whatever issue it is, we just bring them back to best practice. And so I always say that people fall into 2 categories when I work with them, especially when I was managing my teams, is either those that don't know how or those that don't want to. And those that don't know how, we can teach them. We can give them all the skills and the tools. But those that don't know how, they have 2 choices: want to, or I would say get the F out, right? Just get out. Like if you don't want to do it, you got to go. But when you start to create a mechanism for bad behaviors, bad skills, and you actually enforce bad behaviors. We were talking the other day, like when we, actually not you and I, but I was talking to somebody else, just so you know, when we're talking about being held hostage and being people-centric, it's like if you have a bad kid, and your kid goes into the room and just knocks over a vase or a vase, or however you say it, US or Canadian. They just knock it over. And you go, that's just how they are. That's what they do. That's no. It's not that they're a bad kid. It's that you're not parenting them well. You're allowing this happen. If my dog goes and craps on the carpet and I go, oh, that's just what my dog does, that's on me, right? If your business is built like a dog crapping on the carpet, you need to make a shift. You need to change something, and you need to create better practices, because if you are doing that, guess what? That's permeating through the rest of your organization, and your customer facing people don't give a shit. Right. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. And so, and that was the first thing. The second thing you said, I'm going to go on a bit of a rant, is the supply chain. When we talk about predictable revenue, and I like this because my hands start moving. When we talk about supply chain, one of the things I'm working on right now is as we transition into this new world of sales and this new world of creating business, is I think the new economy is going to be based on collaborative selling, and collaborative selling meaning that people have challenges and they don't want to talk to 10 reps that represent 10 different companies. They want to talk to somebody that says, hey, how do I solve this? And they say, hey, here's what we do. And by the end of that conversation, they say, and here's the person we're going to pick, and here's the person we're going to pick, and here's the person we're going to pick. So now we talk to very specific things. So I'm going to be building a group coaching program, people that serve specific markets, how to sell to them collaboratively so everybody wins on this, rather than this gap between buyers and sellers that we keep seeing. And referrals, strategic alliances, channel partners, cross-promotion, affiliates, all of that stuff fits into this model where we say, what are the problems they have and how do we help them solve it? And so I have clients that I've got because of referrals, and I either pay them or we do relationship deals or we do supply chain management. But if we only focus on what we want, like if I just say, hey, Curtis, what money can I get from you for this specific thing I do? I don't think that serves you very well. But if I say, Curtis, what problems do you have? And let me see in my network how we can solve those problems in a different way, whether I get paid or not. That's what I think we should move towards as businesses and as networks, as community partners. As long as it doesn't affect our business negatively, it's going to absolutely skyrocket productivity and resources. Would you guys agree that's true?
Yeah, and you're looking as a client, I hope that a client is looking for a strategic partner that matches, their intensity and their passion for their own industry and their experience. Like if somebody, I kind of that rule, if somebody hasn't been doing it as long as you have, or at least isn't matching your intensity and about getting shit done, and also about just being passionate about what they're doing, but you are, then you're going to have a dysfunctional relationship in that situation.
Totally. I'm just going to say Debt Shepherd, stop making me say this, but yes, you can join. Click the thing. Here we go. Greg is the name. Don't be weird. Here we go. And Greg's going to join us. He's going to ask some questions. And look, he's the setup.
He's a professional.
Legit.
I'm going to have to do this now. I'm going to pull my thing down.
Oh.
All right. I'm here.
Just hold it there, Joe.
Okay, here we go. I'm just going to put it right here. Greg, what's up, brother?
Hey, thanks for letting me in, guys.
How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Good. Talk to us.
Great conversation, by the way. And here's the thing. For me, when I started coaching, I don't really like that word, helping people get what they wanted in what I do, I was afraid because I didn't really know what to charge. That whole thing of, what do you charge? I didn't know that thing. So I found a guy that seemed to be pretty smart, and he's a pretty good guy. And I spent some time with him, and I paid him, and he wasn't outrageous, like $2,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
Spent some time together, about 2 or 3 hours. And he gave me this little chart, and he said, look, charge according to people's income. And for me, that just works. It just works for me. So if you're making $10,000 a year and you happen to bump into me, it doesn't mean that's my target or that's my typical client, because that's really not my typical best client. It's really not. That's okay. If you find me, you're not going to pay someone who makes $300,000 a year. And it just sort of helped me sort of get past that whole thing. What do I charge? So what happened was a couple times in where we did a little consultation, and I didn't charge anything. And the whole time, this is what was happening in my mind. And I think you guys can get this. I'm trying to explore what they need best. Mm-hmm. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, what do I charge these people? Holy shit. I don't know how to do that. Right. Okay. So it took a couple times. And then once I sort of got that thing, look, just charge based on what they make. And that sliding scale to me is incredibly fair because I've been in the money business for 15 years and I get that. So this is what happened. Once I got past that, the first 2 people that came to me that said, I found you wherever, and I want you to help me. And I said, okay, let's explore how I might be able to help you. Not how I'm going to help you, how I might be able to help you. And that's like 30 minutes. It does not take that long. It's okay. I used to make that free. I actually charge for that now.
Totally.
And I'm cool with that. So we did that. And this is amazing. The last 2 clients that I've had that I've coached, they said this, and I'm not saying this happens every time. How do I pay you? I'm like, holy shit, this is totally different. Because my fear of what am I going to charge you was in my initial consultation. And I'm not saying they could hear that. Not what I'm saying. But I can tell you, there's something going on subconsciously. They're like, this guy is not, and I've been in the business forever, and I know what to do to sort of help them go. Doesn't mean they're going to do it. Doesn't mean they're going to take it.
Yeah.
But once I got past that whole price thing, I was just like, I can actually relax now. Here's the killer thing. I can listen to, now, somebody said something on this call earlier. I can't tell you what it is. Let's say I have a whole bag of tricks of like, there's 15 things I can do for you. What if they only need one of those things? I'm not going to blow all those other 14 onto you because you don't need to know those things.
Yeah, man.
Like, let's just focus. So once I could relax on price, and I'm like, okay, I'm cool with that. I could literally, price meant nothing to me. I'm like, just listen. And then at the end of the conversation, it was like, okay, good. And the guy that taught me a few tricks, and I don't mean that in a bad way, he said, look, you can ask your client, what are they not willing to do? And that was a big door opener because that's the one thing that people are like, wow, no one has ever asked me that. I'm like, what are you not willing to do? I don't mean break the law. I just mean, what are you not willing to do? So anyway, I'm not going to talk too long. This is
Keep talking, man.
This is powerful stuff because, you know, everybody's like, oh, you know, start your own business and make a bunch of money and all this shit online. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
Can you show me your bank statements? I'm not, nobody does that. Really? How many people have you coached in the last 6 months or whatever? And people are like, well, that's kind of rude. I'm like, really? Well, here in England, we don't ask that. Or here in Scotland or here in the U.S., I'm like, really? Because if I'm going to hire you, Joe, and you're like, okay, here's some testimonials, that's fine. But if I'm going to drop some dime on you, especially if it's, you know, sort of in that upper range, $40, $50, fine. But if we go into that other area, I need to know that I feel slightly comfortable what the hell it is that you're doing. And I'm not saying I can know you in 10 minutes, but when I ask you, and I know when we're doing video, we can't see each other eye to eye. I'm like, you know, what was your gross income last year? But I'm over with. It's over with. I don't want you to tell me everything, but if you're comfortable answering that question, you don't have to tell me what that is, but I just want to see your reaction. I'm okay with that. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, Greg, man, I love that you joined, brother. This is cool. Is you're absolutely. Can you guys hear me first of all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I had to remount my microphone.
That was getting kind of weird.
Oh my god, that was crazy. That was
had a crazy reaction to this.
Oh, I'm so excited about your Dude, man. And you know what? I love that you just joined. And we're going to keep this going. I think I'm going to keep the recording going. So I think just if anybody says this is not valuable, just post in the comments. If you don't post, I will assume you think this is badass. But Greg, what you're saying is so important. And I'll share with you a story from a point of qualification. One of the things that I teach people, because I do sales coaching, is really hold tight to your question and not interrogation, but your qualification process. Sit on the question a lot longer than you feel comfortable for. Because if you rush to try and solve somebody's problem, if you start to give them the punchline too soon, you may miss something. And that's when they go, let me think about it. Let me just, I'm not quite sure. And you have to start to justify, and you get into this weird back and forth as a buyer and a seller. And for me, from a price point, is one of the things that I always say is don't make decisions for your clients based on your own wallet. Don't make them based on your own bank account. Like you were saying, is that $50 may be huge for somebody, and it may be like kind of a joke for somebody else. And so if you price yourself in the wrong place, you're either too high or too low. So when you're asking questions, you need to know what value money represents. And we talked on a previous one about the concept of money and priming and what our relationship is with money. So when I talk about money, it's like, and I just had this happen a while back where I talked to a client, and, you know, typically when I do sales workshops, I'm charging around 10 grand a day for a workshop. And I often feel guilty because most people can't afford that. But for companies, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I got on a sales call a while back, and they were talking about who I'm positioning against, and it's a U.S. company, and they're charging in U.S. dollars, so it's quite expensive. And they charge almost $70,000 a day U.S.
Wow.
for a workshop and for all this stuff they're doing, and they get all this and this and this and this. And I was like, in my mind, and I said, what's the second highest one? And the guy said, it's about 50, 60 grand. I was like, okay. I said, we're comparable. I'm in my mind. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. But if you don't ask that question, you don't understand where you fit in the conversation. But if you jump to start to give a price and I give the price too low, it's not that I'm a better value. They might start to think, wow, maybe this isn't worth it for us to even bring this guy on, even if it's at the higher end of my current spectrum. And so from a coaching standpoint, when you start to hold tight and you have confidence in your price is subjective based on value that you bring to the client. And I was explaining, somebody's like, 50 grand for a day is crazy, but not if the thing you do in that day helps them make 5 million. Not even if that thing you do in that day helps them make 500,000. Based on their business. 10% or 1% is no problem to pay somebody to help you get that. But if I was to pay somebody 50 grand in a day, I'd probably have to be put into a psych ward because I don't have 50 grand for a day from my business to hire somebody to tell me how to make some more money. It's just not, it doesn't make sense. And so what we're looking at is price is not an issue. Value is the issue, and being objective about what your customers need. And like Greg, this is what you're talking about, right? It's to say, what do they really need and what services do you provide and what makes sense for them? What's a reasonable price point based on your competitors, and just know how you're different. And if you can't move the needle, be honest with them. Tell them, you know what? I can't do that. Here's a recommendation for somebody else. And so that's kind of what I wanted to add to what you were saying.
Go ahead, Graham, please.
Pick up from right from there, which is super awesome. I'm going to bring it back to predictable revenue and creating our own luck. And great conversation there. That was awesome. When we were talking about creating our own luck and the supply chain and what you were just ending with there, if we can't provide it, don't offer it. There's an amazing thing that happens when a client comes to you and you say to them, hey, you know what? That's not what we do, but who you should go see is this person. Yeah. And what's going to happen is that person that's going to create so much value and trust by referring away that you'll get referrals from people who don't do business with you, and that's a whole new category. There's one thing to get referrals from people who do business with you, but what if you could get referrals from people who don't do business with you? That's creating your own luck. Mm-hmm. That's creating this whole, and so we have a huge thing that we're just in the creative process, but client ambassadors, people who know a little bit more about your company than the average person, who are in the marketplace, who aren't necessarily your clients, but they're going to refer people to you because you referred them away. And that's creating your own luck. So that's super awesome. And then our predictable revenue, a great question to ask in our corporate. So, if you have staff or employees, or maybe you have a business coach, what we do is we buy these big sticky notes. You can get these huge ones. They're Post-it notes.
How big?
Like big.
Like I love it.
They're like 2 feet wide by 3 feet tall.
Where do you get those? Send me one.
I get them from my mom. I don't know where she gets them.
I got it from my mama.
That's right. So I think it's a Staples buy in Canada. It's a Staples buy. And anyways, we put them on the wall and we put up a question. And so usually we start from what's working or what's not working, right? And so what's not working? Well, clients come in and have a price objection. Great. Boom. What is the price objection? And what we do is we brainstorm. So we get everybody in the room and say, okay, what's all the things we could do to eliminate people complaining about value? And so we'll just brainstorm them all out. We'll pick one of those that we say, okay, if we put 5 hours into this one, what's the percentage we could increase the value of what we do? Oh, that one would be 60% increase if we put some time into it, versus another idea might only be 2% or 10% increase. We say, okay, let's double click that one. And then we'll expand down on that one. We'll say, what are the actual things? Maybe if it was, in the renovations, let's go renovations. And we say, the biggest thing for people is they're worried about someone starting a job and not finishing a job. And so, you can't charge too much because people are worried about, so you can't take a big down payment on a job because people are worried about you starting and never coming back. And so you could say, okay, the problem is we can't take enough up front to pay for the job. So we're actually going into our own pocket to put out materials and all that kind of stuff. Well, okay, then we double click that with everybody in the room. So we have a meeting as a team and we're building that as an organization. Mm-hmm. And that's going to provide predictable revenue because our clients are going to feel that value. They're going to feel a certain way. We got that information board up. That handles a lot of that. And then that provides credibility online and house and all that kind of stuff. So,
that's what you're talking about, Joe, a little bit about split testing. And
I think you're echoing again.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Keep going.
I think it's when a couple of us talk at the same time. Maybe it also kind of comes out that way. But yeah, just what you're talking about, split testing and maybe monetizing your exit traffic.
Yeah, there's a couple questions that have come through on the side here, and you know what? This blab is awesome. This is so fun because I love it. Right? Is when we look at if I step away from it for a second. And what you're talking about, Graham, everybody's talking about the same stuff, and on the comments here, people are asking about pricing, and this is usually where people get sticky on it. Is how do we charge more for our pricing? And let's keep it in focus for a second. I don't think it's pricing is the issue. Is like, can we solve problems? And so over the last while, when I started my business, we go back to what Graham said, like, minute number 5 was what's the intention of our business? And for me, when I started my business was I want to help people do kick-ass stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to help them solve problems. I want to help them be in a new reality this time next year. And so I had, and I'll throw it out. Nicole was somebody that came to me and said, hey, I'm going to save up so I can hire you. And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, that's kind of a shitty business model for me to like not help somebody because of pricing. And so we sat down and we said, I looked at her and I looked at what she's doing. And Greg, what you're talking about from the coaching side, I said, what are you willing to do here? Like, and you were talking about what won't you do? And what's going to happen? What are you trying to accomplish? And for me, I would rather have somebody pay me nothing or a little bit and they go and absolutely crush it. And Nicole this year has made 10 times what she made last year. I can throw that out there. And that feels way better than trying to get a bunch of customers, right? I want to help people do cool stuff. And all I have to do from creating predictable revenue is to make sure that I've covered my don't get homeless bank account, right? As long as I'm not homeless, I can do whatever I want. That's why I love this like Whiskey Friday component, because people say, well, why are you doing that? I'm like, I get to get drunk on Friday afternoon. I built a business that allows me to do that. And that is a badass thing to do. And when I tell and from a predictable standpoint, when I do workshops, I tell people about this. And because I talk to salespeople, they all go, hey, that's pretty cool. So from a predictable standpoint, from creating your own luck, all of this stuff starts to spiral. But if you don't start from that place of intention and value and vision, everything you do essentially becomes roles that you would do as an employee. And if that's the case, go get a job. Yeah. Right. And if you're going to start a business, do something that makes a friggin' impact. Yeah. Do something that actually impacts your community, your market. And if somebody does it, if you bring on a client for free or $10, awesome. And when you get those other clients for 50 grand an hour or for a day, that's fine too. Value and price is subjective. It doesn't matter. It matters what impact you make. And that's kind of where I'm coming from here is that, price is like, everybody's like, yeah, how do I get more of this? It's like, well, how do you do more of this? How do you add more value? And if you're not adding value, don't have a business, get a job. That's what I wanted to add there.
And yeah. Joe, by the way, let me add very quickly, a client I'm working with right now.
Yeah.
My package is a 6-month package, package, whatever you want to call it, time with me. We're into about month 4. It's going very well. She's had some bumps and some ups and some downs and all that. This is what she said to me. And I knew what she made because here's the beauty of what this person taught me that I paid them a very little amount of money to teach me. Yeah. They said, look, this is how you qualify your client. And it's not a deceptive thing. It just means you come to me and you say, let's do the consultation. And I used to make it free and I don't anymore. It's very expensive. It's not that much money. But once you say, I want to do that, I send you a worksheet. And on that worksheet, this is what you tell me.
Yeah, man.
How much money you make a year gross and what all your debts and all your liabilities and all your income is. Now, for a lot of people, that's really intrusive. But by the time you get to me, you're typically past that fear. You need help. I'm like the heroin counselor, let's get off of the dope, right? So there's like this built-in thing, and it took me a while to sort of figure that out. Now, it's not a trick. Once you tell me, or you tell me, okay, I make $50,000 a year, it doesn't really matter. Some clients make 50, some make 20, some make 300,000. It doesn't matter. And I'm not like, ooh, wow. It doesn't matter. I still don't know what your biggest problem is. Now, I would love to help you fix every single thing that I would love to think I could help you fix. But if you just say to me, look, Greg, I got news for you. I make $200,000 a year, and I have one problem I want you to help me solve. If you think you're arrogant enough as a coach or a consultant to fix all the other shit that you think you can fix, you don't need to be even talking to this person. You deliver to that one person what they told you they want you to deliver. And
Greg,
if you can do that, your work is done. It is over with.
Greg, you're like my new favorite guy. You're in the list. You're in the list of favorite guys.
It took me. I'm like, you know what? I know all this stuff. It doesn't mean I'm smart. I'm like, if you will just listen to me, they don't. Okay, here's the raw truth. Greg, they don't want to know your political opinions. Ooh, that hurts. Greg, they don't want to know your religious opinions. Ooh, that hurts. Really? Does it really hurt? Are you really that immature? Solve their specific, not what you think their wide problem is. And you know what? They will freaking throw their money at you. And I don't mean billionaires, because that's not who I deal with. That's not real for me. And I don't mean millionaires. That's not real for me either. I like six-figure people, $100,000 or
100,000ers.
That's just my comfort zone. That's just my comfort zone. I don't have a problem with that. But all these coaches are like, oh, you need to talk to $10 million people.
Yeah, everybody's got an opinion, Greg, man. Everybody's going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, and they operate from their own insecurity.
It's okay.
Screw it, man. And I think you're talking a lot about, really understanding your target market. You don't want to say like, oh, I just won't take anybody. But if you, and I know Graham had mentioned this before when he talked a little bit about, what he was doing with his new business coming with financial planning, is that he knew exactly, right down to the dollar figure and the sex of the person that he's looking to, target for his services, because he knows that he can function, at the highest level of performance in that area. It doesn't mean that he won't accept people that make, more money or less money or a different sex or have kids or whatever. But he knows that for him, that's the highest performance level is there. And then he decides through a consultative selling process how to be able to, identify and fix those problems for people that are coming to him.
Dude, man. Can I ask a question for you guys? Because I'm still recording here. This is the 6th, episode of Whiskey Fridays. And my goal was to make it feel like it was, what up, 6? To make it feel like we were sitting around at a pub having a whiskey and just talking business. And at this moment right now, I have this feeling like this feels like what it would be like if the four of us were sitting in a pub chatting. Do you guys feel like this is what it is?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about anybody on the audience here that's just listening, adding comments? Do you guys feel like that's kind of what it is? Because I'm keep recording. I've kept recording because I think it's fun, man. Yeah, like this feels cool. I like this shit.
I mean, we just need to add a bartender.
We got a bartender. Theta BJ, what's up, man? What are you serving? It makes your life easy.
Yeah.
This is my first time on the show.
Yeah.
And first of all, I realized my background is non-comparable to Curtis, first of all. So I'm going to have to up my game on the background because background level is unbelievable for Curtis.
Yeah.
And second thing is
physical background or
that background.
not even like background.
And second thing is I'm going to have to get going. I got some commitments to take care of. And I thought I'd leave one last little speck on intention because I think that's it, right? I mean, that's everything is intention. And Robin, right? Is Robin still with us? Yeah, Robin was talking about upping my rates, that sort of thing. And she wasn't here when we were talking about intention. But intention, you were talking about, Joe was talking about how he feels fulfilled when he helps other people kick ass.
Yeah.
And like that intention is like Joe's intention is having other people feel like they're kicking ass. And so it's our intention is like, how do we leave other people feeling after we've talked to them? You know, so Curtis in the salon, people are going to feel a certain way leaving. That's the intention of the business, is how people feel when they're leaving. After you've been to Joe, you feel like you can kick ass. After you come to our financial firm, you feel unstoppable. So, you know, that intention you're creating is a great question to throw up on the Post-it note. And it's, how do I want people to feel after I'm done? I feel great helping people at $100 an hour, but I would feel, yeah. So, you know, how would somebody have to feel to pay you $50,000 a day?
Yeah.
You know, that question on a Post-it note, then get your, you know, spouse, family outside of that, have people over for a whiskey night and say, here's my question, boom, brainstorm, you know.
You know what, Graham, you're so bang on, because when we started having those conversations with clients, and at first the thought is, oh yeah, like, and I always do a lot of work, like I said, with I'm going to bring it back up. Subliminal. Woo, it's a great book. Get this book. It's awesome. You can see how there's hidden words. You can see them. But Subliminal is all about how we communicate unconsciously. And I always have to like control my emotions and all this kind of stuff. But when somebody starts telling me that, you know, these are the things that we would do for 50 grand a day, the first thought that you're going to have is, oh, wow, that's great for me. But you got to just like kick that in the ass and say, it has nothing to do with me. You got to write down, what do I have to do to make, like you said, make them feel that this was amazing for 50 grand a day? What was it? What do I have to do to make them feel like, you know what, that's crazy value? Because the goal is not the day. The goal is, how do you go, wow, that was amazing today. How do we work with you for the next 6 months? Like Greg was saying, how do we work with you the next year? How do I become a lifelong partner with you to solve these problems in perpetuity? So typically when we do like positioning of offers, I do a conceptual agreement. My documents, my proposals have options. And the option is, let's do a workshop. Let's do this. Let's have a little fun powwow and do some cool stuff. But then ultimately, I'd like to build a 90-day program for you and then a year-long program. But if for some reason you don't like me, I'm not a good fit, you think I'm a douchebag, day one, don't keep paying me for stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's enjoy our time together. And if we don't connect somehow, and I haven't had that happen, but most people like me, but that's all the work that I have to do to make sure that when we get together, we solve problems together. And now I'm all of a sudden part of this, and it's worth their time. It's worth their resources to continue working together. And if we end this relationship, then you know what? Nobody's at fault, right? It's not a big problem. It's just we get better at making sure we have value. And so that's the question. I know Robin's asking about like this pricing and stuff. And like you can charge $10 a minute, $100 an hour. You can charge $100 a day. You could charge $0. But as long as you add value and your customers do something with it, that's what matters, right? And if you get long-term relationships, strategic partner relationships rather than vendor and commodity relationships, now you can have real conversations. As Greg's saying, is if you don't open up the possibility to ask the real questions, you're probably not serving a market. So that's my Whiskey Friday.
All right, guys, cheers. I appreciate the time. It was phenomenal. And we'll probably catch you next Friday.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Graham.
Okay, cheers.
Yep.
All right, open seat if anyone wants to join. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do the last thoughts, like Jerry Springer, right? Final thoughts for the last 2 minutes, and then I'm going to stop the recording. We're going to keep hanging out because I just like drinking and talking business. But I'm going to start with Curtis and go to Greg and just say, what are your final thoughts around this idea about creating predictability in your business and luck? Curtis, go ahead.
Yeah, we didn't get much into the luck aspect because I really wanted to. I mean, maybe we can get Graham back out to talk a little bit more about it, because he had a little bit of a gambling part of his business that he does. That's I think he mentioned at the beginning. It'd be interesting to hear from his perspective about that, because I really don't think. I think there's a couple of different type of gamblers out there. There's ones that play the odds, or the ones that are just out there to have fun and just think it's all luck. Gotcha. It's similar to the way that entrepreneurs are out there. You know, it's not just kind of rolling the dice and seeing how they lay. You know, it is a lot about your intention, and that's been probably the biggest word, you know, of the day today, is that, you know, with your intention, you are, you know, you're creating a destiny for yourself. That yes, there's going to be other factors. There's going to be things that are going to come along the way that may be out of your control, but you are in control of what you decide to be in control of, and what you have the foresight and as a leader to be able to recognize that you have. And with that is building the systems that support that plan, and building those systems wide instead of tall, so that the systems are at the base an amazing foundation of strategic partners that are all leaders, and they're all looking forward, and they're all helping out and helping you be able to execute the plan with being able to take on all of the aspects that it takes to become a leader. And being prophetic, planning ahead, participating, performing, and failing forward. All these aspects. I didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but getting your head wrapped around what it's going to take to be able to execute your plan with authenticity, and really recognize who you are and what you want to deliver, and then boom, do it. Just get shit done.
GSD, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greg, hit us with your best shot and fire away. You know that song?
All I can tell you is I spent most of my life thinking about a lot of amazing shit in my head, and I never got off my ass and did a goddamn thing.
I love it.
And it doesn't mean that once I decided to get off my butt and do something, that was going to produce anything.
Yeah.
That takes time, and that takes effort, and that just takes stumbling, and we just bump our knees. We get bloody, we skin our knee, we skin our forehead. Somebody goes, you blew it. Okay, fine. But here's the thing: just get around somebody that's doing something that I want to do. They don't have to be the most amazing gazillionaire in the business. Just get around somebody that's done it, and they're like, look, I've been there. All I'm telling you is if you go down that road, you're going to feel pain. Now, I can listen, or I can say, I'm not going to go down that road, and that's okay. And here's the thing. If you're listening, you're like, well, I don't want to make any decisions because I don't have any money, and rich people have all the money, and they give it all to their kids. All I can tell you is if you're an idiot, a bunch of money is going to do nothing more than let you recover quicker from your mistakes than if you don't have a whole lot of money. And in the end, it's all the damn same. Joe, Curtis, this is a kick-ass conversation, brother.
I love it, brother. I love it. Robin's been commenting and saying stuff. Robin, look how lovely. Your hair looks wonderful, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. I had to laugh at. You're right. If you're an idiot, money just makes you recover from being an idiot.
I love that.
So true. I love that.
Yes.
I love that, and I love get shit done. I love both of those quotes.
It's in my notes. Pretty much all of my client calls end up with what's the GSD here? What's the get shit done? I don't coaches for some reason, it's because if we're charging X amount of dollars per hour, we want to try to have more hours. I had a girl who we did a silent auction prize one day, and she's like, hey, I bought your thing and I got 2 hours of your consulting. And I was like, and she's like, I can't wait. But she said to me, she's like, I'm overcoached right now. And I said, what the hell does that even mean? She's like, well, I got all these coaches. I got this. And I was like, here's the thing. I was like, I'm not a coach. I'm a get shit done. I was like, if we can do more in an hour than we do in 10 hours, we'll do it. I was like, I'm not going to tell you all the stuff you should think about. I'm not going to make you feel good. I'm not here to motivate you. My job is to help you solve problems. When you solve problems, you feel good and you're motivated because of the shit you got done. That's it. And her friend was like, well, I want to do that too. I was like, all right, so I got a client, right? So that's I think how it should be. Is there's so many people that are just trying to say, how much time can I suck from people based on my hourly? It's like, no, man, help them solve problems and charge my value, right? So Robin, now we've gone around the circle. Robin, tell us your sort of philosophy here, and I'm going to close up with a couple ideas that I have on luck.
Oh, so I'm going to start out with I'm having Fireball.
Oh, cinnamon.
So just so you know, that's what drew me into your blog. That was Whiskey Friday, right? So that's what drew me in. But I agree with you, Joe, that it is not about. So while I may not get $50,000 a day, I really want to get my clients to have the most value they can for whatever I'm charging them. It doesn't matter. I want them to go, wow, that was worth the money, whatever the price I charged them. And that they can say, hey, I'm going to go back to Robin and ask her for more help now for this other problem. Or I'm going to refer Robin to my other friends who need help in the same kind of areas. So I agree with you 100%. It really isn't. I mean, like I said, I'm happy making people, solving problems for $100 an hour. I'd be more happy if it was $50,000 a day. I mean, who wouldn't, right? But in the long run, it is about making people happy and solving their problems and providing value for them.
Yep.
And I want to keep doing that regardless of what I charge for an hour, even if I do it for free.
I love it. I love it. And James is from the DH. No, that was Curtis said, keep rocking the fireball. I love it. I'm a big psychology and neuroscience nerd, and I read studies about everything because most of the time, like, would you guys agree that we're the worst predictors of our own future behavior? You guys say that's probably pretty true, right? So I started studying neuroscience and cognition and social sciences just to figure out why I'm such a weirdo, right? Because I'm like, there's things that I do, like I don't get people. I want to do things and I work a certain way and other people don't get me. So I started to study this stuff to say, why is this happening? And so I'm going to come back because Curtis was talking about creating your own luck. There was a study that I read, and man, it just absolutely transformed the way I thought. This was years and years ago, and I think I have it, a PDF of it somewhere. I can look for it. But it was they did this study where there was people that they sent them out and just said, just go out for your day, and we're gonna observe you. And so the people would go out, and the first guy went out, and as he was walking, he looked down, he saw a $20 bill. So what he did is he picked up that $20 bill, and then he went in to this bar, this pub, and he sat down. There was one seat available, and he sat down and he ordered a drink, and he started talking to the next guy beside him, and they started talking business and ideas, and next thing you know, they're doing business together, right? And then the second person went in, and they did the same thing. And so afterwards, they sat down and they went through these guys, and they said, okay, let's tell us about your day. And the first guy said, well, yeah, I walked. And as I was walking, I was having a great day. I was saying hi to people, and I found $20 on the ground. And then I went into this pub, and I got this great client. There was one seat available. Had a wonderful drink. Had a great day. And they said, "What about you?" To the second person, and they said, "Oh, nothing much happened. I did the same thing. I walked, went into that pub, I sat down, and nothing happened. I had a drink, and I left." And the situation, they set it up exactly the same for both people. And the difference between the first person and the second person was the first person was paying attention. They were looking for opportunities. They were looking for, hey, there's $20. There's this. It was the exact same scenario. And they went to the pub and they talked to people, and they set the person up beside them to be exactly what this person needed as a potential client or business partner. But the difference between the first person and the second person is where they were open to opportunities, they're open to conversations. And when we talk about creating your own luck, I think that's the big thing, is we want to be able to create opportunities. And for me, the funniest thing is I always talk about build the thing before you need it. And so when I started building my blog and building all this stuff, I had no idea what it was for. The same thing with Whiskey Friday is I have no idea what this is for. All I know is that we said, hey, let's do this thing every week for the next forever, how long, and just let's be here this time next year. That was something I learned in network marketing, right? Just be here next time, this time next year, and just continually doing this thing. And you never know how this is going to evolve. And that mindset in my business, there's videos that I shot years ago for my blog that I thought were kind of stupid, but I've landed the biggest corporate clients from some stupid thing I did 2-3 years ago. So if I didn't do that, it didn't happen. So then I love, like, Gary Vaynerchuk. He talks about this concept of overnight success. There is no such thing as an overnight success. When all of a sudden you start hitting it big, it's because the cool and shitty work that you did 2, 3, 4 years ago that absolutely cranked it out for you today. Yeah. And so that's kind of what I wanted to end on, is that's how you create your own luck. You do the work and you never know what's going to happen. But if you're not here next year, that's when somebody else will step in and take the business that you never even knew you could get. You guys agree?
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah. So anything else you guys want to add before I pause the recording? We just keep drinking and talking.
Do it, brother. Do it.
All right. Pause.